go next.
Great.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for coming today. And what we're going to talk about is the weaponization of the Justice Department by the Biden administration. In order to do that, I'll tell you my story. So this is back after my primary. I've been outspent 4 to 5 to 1. We'd won overwhelmingly, so it was a day with my family that should have really been a celebration and relief. My son, our little one, goes outside, takes the dog out, and across the street, we live out in the country on top of a hill on a farm, so these cars were out of place. And he comes in and says, "Dad, there's some cars across the street." Well, it turns out those cars were the FBI, the Biden administration. And what they've done is they've taken an FEC violation and tried to turn it into a prosecution, a crime. But you have to go, to understand how we got there, you have to go back. See, I had been going after Jack Smith. Jack Smith actually had run the Nashville U.S. Attorney's Office. And I had tried to defund him. I had dropped articles of impeachment against Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I had been one of the attack dogs against the Biden administration. In the morning after my election, they came to my home and they seized my phone. And I later found out they'd seized my emails. Now, this is important because our Constitution creates a wall of separation, the speech and debate clause. And the Biden administration was willing to intentionally violate that clause to punish its adversaries, to target conservatives, specifically to target Republicans. And so over the last 2 years, we've had to fight to clear my name. And to this day, our son still has nightmares that the Biden administration in the middle of the night or some morning is going to come in and take his dad away. The consequence of this is serious because if they can willfully violate the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment and come after a member of Congress, then they can come after anyone. As journalists, they can come after you because you don't tell a story the right way. And so when I took a stand, you can look at Arctic Frost. You can look at Rampart 12. You can look at what they did to Scott Perry and what they did to me. 2 years, a nightmare for my family, nightmares that my son still has. And we've fought, and like the Rayburn case and like the Perry case, we fought back and defended the Constitution. So this is less about me and more about, it's a warning to the American people that it matters who leads. And thankfully, because of President Trump and his leadership, getting back to law and order, this DOJ has cleared me and cleared so many others. So with that, I'd like to introduce Congressman Barry Moore.
Thank you, Andy, for hosting this. And, you know, really the punishment is the process. Even if they don't find anything wrong, the process to quieten the dissenters within government. My story is a little different. I was indicted. I actually... the 2 top conservatives in Alabama were indicted by a former federal prosecutor. And the deal was if you cut a deal and walk away from your political office, if you would stop the fight, the persecution would go away. And my team of attorneys called my house and said, "Hey, Barry," and these are high-paid attorneys. If I told you the names, you'd know who they were. They said, "We think you should just cut a deal. You should walk away." I hung up the phone with my high-paid attorneys and walked over to the carport. My 12-year-old son, Andy, was standing there, and I said, "Buddy, if we don't get out of politics, they're going to destroy us personally, they're going to destroy us financially, they're going to destroy us politically." My son said, "Dad, I've been reading the book of Daniel." He said, "When all those men bowed, there were men who stood." And we made a decision that day as a family. We would win that race and we would win that case. And we won that race and we won that case. But it's like Andy says, what they put your family through to quieten the people who do not want to stand against the system itself is unbelievable. And we need to bring attention to it. And you guys in the media need to understand that we need a blind justice system. Instead of trying to find a man and then go look for a crime, they need to find a crime and then investigate the crime. But the process is to quieten anybody who will not go along. So as we're in the fight, what Andy goes through, what Perry, what many of these people on this stage have went through, it's a message to the media, it's a message to our country that they are truly undermining the true blind justice in this country. And so we need to speak out. And Andy, thank you for hosting this, and I appreciate everybody being here. God bless you. With that, I'll introduce Senator Ron Johnson.
Thank you, Congressman Moore. We've already heard there are greater consequences to what you're going to hear in terms of these stories, the outrages, the violations of the separation of powers, really guaranteed in our Constitution. There are way more consequences to this than just the impact on members of Congress, the congressmen, the senators that had their constitutional rights violated. In Wisconsin, we've had literally dozens of people, just ordinary citizens, people who've been volunteering in politics at the county level for years, sometimes decades, who had their constitutional rights violated, caught up in this massive partisan political dragnet of Jack Smith. And it's those ordinary citizens that we really ought to concentrate in terms of the outrage and the outrageous actions of the Biden administration, how they weaponized these agencies. But I want to talk about the consequence currently within the Department of Justice. The fact of the matter is what we know of Jack Smith's, what I would consider unconstitutional behavior, doesn't come from the Trump Department of Justice, doesn't come from the Trump FBI. We've got some documents, we've got some piece of information. It's primarily coming from the subpoena I issued to the carriers, to AT&T, Verizon, and they requested that subpoena because they were under non-disclosure orders from Jack Smith. But they've been cooperating. We've gotten a production just as recently as last week from Verizon. They're the ones providing us the information showing this massive dragnet against just ordinary citizens. And the impact and the effect of the Biden administration politicizing these agencies is being felt right now because the Department of Justice, I'm not blaming the Department of Justice of not providing us documents. They're overwhelmed. You come in as a Trump administration into a politicized Department of Justice, and first of all, a lot of the leftist deep state actors leave. They simply couldn't. They're so partisan they couldn't possibly serve in the Trump administration. You obviously had to get rid of some of the deep state actors. You haven't got rid of all of them, trust me. So now you have this void. You have hundreds of career slots in the Department of Justice that are going unfilled, and young lawyers, people who would like to serve in this administration, people who would like to repair the damage done by the partisan acts of the Biden administration, pretty reluctant to do so because they realize the left's lawfare will destroy their careers as well. This is a serious problem. And I think what is most galling to me is I listen to news reports talking about how Trump has weaponized or politicized the Department of Justice. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's not politicized in the Justice Department. We are going after people who have committed unconstitutional and illegal acts in the previous administration. These people have to be brought to justice in order for us to return to some semblance of equal application of law under our Constitution. So I want the press to concentrate on that and understand that it is not the Trump administration that has weaponized and politicized the Department of Justice. It is the Biden administration. It was the Obama administration. It's the left that has infiltrated these institutions and literally destroying our country. And with that, I'll turn it over to, Congresswoman Boebert.
Senator. Thank you. All these stories are very real and have a lasting impact. And we're not here just saying them because we have a fancy position or a title. We're here because the American people have been weaponized, have been persecuted, and the Department of Justice has been weaponized against them. I stand here today with my colleague, Andy Ogles, and the rest of my colleagues who were targeted by Biden's Department of Justice, which is very much a Department of Injustice. And it was simply because we were conservative members of Congress who were speaking out for the people who had elected us. Just 2 days after Joe Biden was sworn in on January 20th, 2021, the FBI opened a secret preliminary investigation on me called Operation Rampart 12. This was based completely on false Democrat accusations about a reconnaissance tour of the Capitol, an event where on maybe January 2nd, my family and I were touring my new workplace as a member-elect with one of the longest-serving Capitol Hill police officers in the building. And because my family is large, the one thing we do right in Colorado is procreate. Got a lot of boys that were following me around, had mom with me, and just because that group was so big, a Democrat congressman went on CNN and said that I was leading a reconnaissance tour. Now, before the case was even opened, the main prosecutors on the file told the FBI on January 13th and January 16th that they did not have enough evidence to pursue me. In their text messages, they are saying this looks like she's walking around with her family. Now, as a member-elect, this is a big place. I didn't even know where the bathrooms were yet. I was being accused of leading a reconnaissance tour for January 6th. But despite no evidence to actually pursue this case, the Biden Department of Injustice moved forward anyway. They had zero evidence to justify keeping this baseless investigation open, yet on July 19th, when the investigation was set to expire, the FBI unilaterally extended the case without citing any new facts or evidence whatsoever. They found nothing because there was nothing. They kept this political investigation alive for over a year, and it was finally closed on February 10th, 2022, more than a year after it was opened. And during that time, they subpoenaed phone records, toll records, bank statements, and even campaign mileage records. And this was pure political retaliation and abuse of power. Now, I've heard it said before that if you, think that just because we have this Fourth Amendment right and if you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't be worried. Well, that's just like saying I don't need my First Amendment right to free speech because I have nothing to say. This is very important to protect our constitutional rights. That's why all of us are here. We are elected to secure those God-given rights. These aren't rights that are given to you by politicians, by the folks who stand behind this podium, and certainly not by any administration or Department of Justice. Chairman Jim Jordan sent a letter expanding the investigation into how the Biden administration spied on me and other members of Congress, including demands for records from my bank, my private bank, that was subpoenaed. They didn't just spy on me. They spied on multiple Republican members of Congress. And while we're fighting to secure borders and we're fighting for fiscal responsibility, the Biden DOJ was treating us like criminals with no evidence. It's time to stop the deep state's unconstitutional spying on the American people, and that's why we're fighting for real reforms on FISA. Now, 702 is certainly the headline, but it's not the full story. It's why Congressman Thomas Massey and I introduced the Surveillance Accountability Act, and this must end once and for all. Under this bill, the government-initiated searches must be supported by a warrant based on probable cause, just like the Fourth Amendment demands. If the government wants to search you, they go to a judge and prove that they have a probable cause. That's what the founders intended, and that's what every single one of us swore an oath to protect. I've seen firsthand how this surveillance state weaponizes technology against its own citizens, and today we are here to demand justice and highlight the wrongs that were done under the Biden's Department of Injustice. Thank you, Congressman Ogles, for hosting this today, and I would like to turn it over to Senator Rick Scott.
Well, first of all, I want to thank my colleagues for doing this. So the weaponization of government started back during the Clinton years with me. I built the largest hospital company, and I knew that Hillary Care was a disaster for the country, so I put a lot of effort into making sure it didn't pass. So as a result, the Clinton administration targeted my company and went after us. Then during the Biden years, the first thing they did is a contractor, Booz Allen, went out and stole my tax returns and gave it to ProPublica. The Biden administration did nothing to stop Booz Allen from doing that, nothing at all. And then after January 6th, they targeted me and got my records. The only reason that we even found out is because of Senator Johnson's investigation. So, I mean, this is ridiculous. So if you run a big company, you can be targeted. If you're a senator, you can be targeted. If you're a Congress member, you can be targeted. The only way this is going to stop is if we make change. We can't say, oh gosh, the Trump administration is not going to do it. They're not. They're not going to weaponize government like they did against us and against Trump. But guess what? If we have another Democratic administration, they're going to do it. So if we don't make changes to this legislation, the same thing will happen down the road. Now, I guess, oh my goodness.
Let's see, Randy? Congressman Fine.
New congressman from my home state.
That's right. Best governor I served under, Rick Scott, right over here, and I love his jobs pin. Thanks, Andy, for organizing this today. As I stand and I listen to the stories from my colleagues, I recognize one simple thing, which is Americans should be afraid. I didn't know all the details of these stories as I stood up there, and I asked this question of how can this happen in America? President Trump is in China right now. These are stories I would expect to hear at a press conference over there, not one over here. And I'm reminded of the mothers who went to school board meetings in Florida complaining about mask mandates and other things, and they were deemed so threatening by the Biden White House that they sent FBI agents out to look after them. You have to ask yourself a question. If the government is so big, if it has so many resources that it can afford to investigate everyone from members of Congress to mothers of school-aged children, where have we gone wrong? This is a scary thing to realize this exists in America. And I would say we not only need to change the policy, but we need to hold those accountable that have done this. Because Republicans may not be in charge forever. The pendulum does swing. And if we don't punish those who did this in the past, believe you me, they will do it in the future. If I learned one thing as the father of two boys, if I didn't correct their behavior when they made a mistake, not only did that behavior continue, it would worsen. So if you look at what happened over the past 4 years, imagine what could happen over the next. This should not happen in the United States. What happened to these members of Congress should not happen. And all of us, whether we're Democrats or Republicans, should take a solemn vow to make sure that it never, ever happens again. With that, I'd like to introduce Congressman Norman.
Thank you, Randy. This is pretty frightening to hear the stories of Congressman Ogles, Senator Scott. I didn't realize that had happened to you. Scott Perry, and for you, those of you in the media, you got a responsibility to report it as it is. There may be a day that if you print a story and it's not to the liking of the deep state, who are the epitome of weaponized wiretaps, you may not be able to write that story. And what they're not telling you, and I asked Andy early in the back in the room, I said, how many people showed up at your house? He lives on a farm. 6 cars. It's as if he was a criminal getting ready to shoot people. Scott Perry, they went to a place where he was having lunch with his children, took his phone. I don't know how many they had there. What he didn't say is the legal cost that he incurred, $250,000. Scott Perry, $750,000. The process is the punishment. That's what's scary about this, about what's happening in America. And it's starting on the college campuses. I can't tell you how many students have told me that if they don't write the conservative things in their paper, in their opinions, they get penalized. Folks, it's time to speak out. It just is. We cannot allow this to happen in this country. And it is happening in this country. And if we don't take it back, we're going to lose it all. And it starts by what each one of these brave men and women who happen to serve in government. It's deterring good men and women from putting their name on the line at every level, school board, county council, city council, House reps. And it's like a conversation I had with a operative from the other side who kept putting people up against men and women who won by huge margins, their races. And I asked her, I said, why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep putting up people when you know you're going to get beat? She said, Norman, you don't understand. And she said, I'm going to be very blunt with you. We want to bloody you so much. We know it's not going to affect you, but your family. That is what they're trying to get to. That's what they're trying to get the family, the children, like Andy mentioned with his son having nightmares. We can't let that happen. That's what happens in third world countries. That's what's happening with the mass 25 million plus that we were just at a meeting of conservative opportunists telling us how this immigration is still out of control. The deportations are not what has been said. All that to say is, folks, we got to fight. We got to stand up. And serving in office is honorable, but we're going to have to make sure that we're not, scared off from running because they're coming after us. And it's later than you think. Lauren mentioned the First Amendment, freedom of speech, Fourth Amendment, improper seizure. There's so many other amendments in the Constitution. The 10th Amendment, we have states' rights that we need to impose. Last time I researched this, the states created the federal government, not federal government creating the states. And we're losing our freedom. That's pure and simple. And those of you in the media, they may be coming after you next if you write the wrong story. To that college student, they are coming after you on the campuses at every level. And I would say even the public schools and on up. So, Andy, I appreciate your courage to come forward. I've heard this over and over again by elected members who served in cabinet positions having to get out because of the weaponization, the ones that come after them. For no reason other than they were in search of a problem. The purpose of the FBI and Department of Justice is to focus on terrorists, violent criminals, keeping Americans safe, not surveilling on innocent Americans as has been done. The Biden administration needs to be held accountable. And they haven't been. And I appreciate the courage that they have to bring this forward because we're all targets. And it's something that we lose our freedom, and it's worth fighting for now more than ever. With that, I will call on. Turn it back over to Congressman Ogles.
Well, I just will close that, for those of you in the media, when they took my phone and my emails, there were private conversations that I was having or had with President Trump, with the Speaker of the House, with senators, with members of Congress, with the media. And they were trying to use that to get to them and to get to you. The Biden administration was on a warpath. And if they deemed you a threat, then they did whatever they could to destroy you. If not criminally, they tried to do it financially or publicly. Fortunately, I prevailed. Congressman Perry prevailed. The others in these cases have prevailed. But it should be a warning to America. It matters who leads. And thank God we have President Trump. I'll take any questions.
So if a Democrat president is in power, you say it matters who leads. Is there anything Congress can do to address this? Do you think Congress has to pass a law, NDO reform, or bring people in from the Biden administration? How do you think Congress should work on this?
Well, so fortunately, we do have case law. So, we have the Constitution. You have speech and debate. You have the First Amendment. You have right to privacy. Now you have with the Rayburn case, the Perry case, and now the president's upset with my case. But it shouldn't have had to go down that track. Is they tried to use my case to write new law in a different district court because they were pushing back against the Perry ruling and against the Rayburn ruling. But that's how intentional the Biden administration was. And so it matters. These midterms, they matter. Like if you think the government is spying, I can tell you they are. Not this administration. But the Democratic administration has proven if they think you are a threat, then again, it's the adage, show me the man or the woman, and they were looking to show you the crime.
Let me quick add.
Yeah.
Just quick add.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a story that broke today, overnight, with Just the News. We have not gotten the documents yet, but apparently Just the News has the documents that show that the Biden administration, Jack Smith, literally had this case dismissed against Trump without prejudice. He has all the evidence sealed up, so it can't be destroyed until 2030. I mean, they're just setting this whole thing up to start it all over again if they regain power. So again, leadership matters, but accountability is going to be crucial. These people who have done these, broken these laws, committed these unconstitutional acts, they need to be brought to justice. And again, that's not weaponization of the Trump administration. That is bringing justice so we can restore the equal application of justice in this country.
Can I say one thing, too? The thing that I get most of all, people call me and say, Ralph, we have all these hearings. Where are the consequences? I mean, I don't see any jumpsuits on people that have committed serious crimes. They go through all these public hearings, go through all the testimony. What's happened? Starting with Hillary Clinton, you can go down the list. Where are the consequences? It's like having a speed limit. Unless you have a consequence, it's just a suggestion. And how enforceable are suggestions? So we can pass all the laws we want. Mm-hmm. If we're not going to have the judges who are going to back support the Constitution, then where are we? That's the big issue that we have.
Any other questions?
So, Congressman Ogles, you have faced accusations from the Department of Justice, but you've also faced accusations of misusing funds that were intended for a children's burial ground, and you've also been accused of lying on your resume. Do you accept any personal responsibility for those?
Well, again, we've produced all the documents. I mean, that's totally separate. I'm happy to talk about that offline. But, when it comes to the burial ground, 52% of the money in that fund came from myself and my wife. The rest of it came from my family. And we ultimately used that money instead of burial grounds to help primarily children with cancer. So one of the donations we made recently was $30,000 for a young child, and one of the things he wanted to do in quite frankly his memory. So it's a nonsense story. But that's what they do is they come at you, they target you, they try to find something, a thread that they can pick out, and what they find doesn't matter because their story's already written. The truth doesn't matter. So, questions?
Just to verify, are there remedies or punishments you're looking for following these allegations about DOJ under Biden?
Well, I think, as the senator said, there's got to be accountability. So whether it's Cohen or Jack Smith or some of the others, those folks that broke the law should be held accountable. And then one more, ma'am in the back.
Just to clear, is this at all, you guys, is this affecting the size of the conversation at all with them to, surveillance right there, or at least Scott, if you have anything to say on that? Or?
I'm very sensitive to FISA and the fact that I believe that you should have a warrant. As someone who's been a victim of a weaponized justice system, again, if it can happen to a member of Congress, if it can happen to a U.S. senator, someone that works for the administration, then it can happen to you. Thank you all for coming today. Any final thoughts?
Sorry to do this. I just have to talk about how difficult it is to do these investigations when people like Jack Smith have sealed these records. I mean, some of the documents we've obtained were in a skiff that Kash Patel had no idea about in a burn bag. How many other incriminating documents were in burn bags and were burned? So that's the challenge we have. People who do wrongdoing, particularly people with legal minds, understand what's incriminating. They destroy the evidence. So it's very difficult to gather the evidence, to have the documents, particularly with lawfare, and you don't have nonpartisan actors in the Department of Justice, not as many as we need to root this out. So it's a very tough slog trying to uncover this, investigate it, and then prosecute and get convictions. It's very difficult.
Real quick question. The burn bags and what you said about Kash Patel, is that regarding the new memos that we just learned about today?
No, I mean, that's months ago in terms of, one of the productions they got out of a burn bag. So again, it's just challenging. I don't know everything going inside the DOJ, But I'm sure it's a huge challenge for Cash Patel and for now Todd Blanche.
Thank you all.
Good job.
Good job, bro. Good job, Good job. Good job.